Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2226. The topic is mindset, and the title is Where to Start. A friend of Meredith and I wants to lose body fat. She would like to build muscle because she's really looking to improve her aesthetics, but also she wants to be prepared for later in life, make sure she can stay mobile, stay strong, stay healthy for longer. I don't know her exact age. If I had to guess, I would say late 40s, early 50s, somewhere in there. And these are things I probably need to ask. The reason why I say that is it's funny to have known her for this long but not know her age. So maybe that's why I should ask. But it also doesn't matter what her age is, which is why I never asked. So she is wanting to look better now, but she's really wanting to be healthier and long-term healthy. So good bone density, good muscular strength, good connective tissue strength, good mobility, all the good stuff, all the things that we don't pay attention enough to in our 20s and 30s. And then maybe in the 40s you start to say, that's probably something I need to do. And then in the 50s you're like, damn it, I should have already been doing this. So for her, what she's doing now is she's aware of nutrition being important. So she follows a vegetarian-ish type diet. So she'll eat some chicken every now and then, some fish, but she stays away from red meat, some other meats. She's not big on animal products. She tries to go more plant-based. She believes that's to be healthier, so that's what she's aiming towards. And then exercise-wise, she walks a decent amount with her job, probably 5,000 steps a day, but she doesn't do any weight training workouts at all on a regular basis. So she knows that she needs to be doing something to reach her goals. So she's not going to improve bone density by not weight training. She's not going to improve muscle size by not weight training. She's not going to improve connective tissue strength by not weight training. She can lose some body fat by taking care of just her nutrition, but exercise would help. So what she's doing nutrition-wise is, in her mind, it's something, but is it the best something? And exercise-wise, she knows she needs to be doing something, but she's not really doing anything there. So at this point, she's not really making progress as much as she's just slowing down regression, which is depressing. But that's often where a lot of people are, is they know they need to be doing something. They're kind of sort of maybe doing something, but it's not enough to make progress, but it's enough to at least feel content that they're hopefully slowing down regression. But that can't be where we want to stay if we actually eventually want to get somewhere or go somewhere. Usually no one's goal is to decay slower. Usually everyone's goal is to actually make progress in some ways, not to decay slower. So what I did with her is, after we were talking, I sent her some information, and I do want to share a little bit about what that information was in today's podcast, just so you know. But in the discussion we had, what I thought was interesting to note was when people have the awareness that they need to be doing something, but they're not doing enough, it's often because what they believe they need to do, they can't do, or they're not confident that it's the right thing to do, or they're not confident that they can do it long term. So this becomes an issue in which they're like, I know I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z, but I just can't do that. And the issue is with what they're framing mentally as what X, Y, Z is. So X, Y, Z to them is something that's beyond their current capacity. It's beyond their current capacity to understand if it will work, so they don't have confidence in whether they should even be doing that. It's beyond their current capacity to believe that they can do it long term. So they're like, I know I need to do that, but I can't do that on a regular basis. Or my life's just too busy right now. There's just no way I can keep that up. Or their belief of what is necessary is so dauntingly large that why even start? What I wanted to do today was to talk about how we can overcome those issues, those confidence issues, those uncertainties. So let me go through and tell you a little bit about what I actually recommended to her. So the first thing that it says where to start is nutrition. It's by far going to be the most impactful towards her goals. Now you might say like, well, if she doesn't weight train, how is she going to build muscle? How is she going to improve bone density? How is she going to be, have stronger connective tissues for mobility? Well, proper nutrition will ensure that she has the right nutrients to maintain muscle tissue. And then when she works out, she'll actually have enough to actually build muscle. So if she were to lift weights without nutrition in place, lifting weights alone doesn't do anything because she won't have the building block components in place for muscle tissue. She won't have the building block components in place to strengthen and repair connective tissue. She won't have the building block components in place to improve bone density. So everything starts with nutrition. It doesn't mean it stops with nutrition, but it does start there. So for her, what I really wanted to do was to get her better timing during the day. So she undereats at night. She undereats during the day, and then overeats at night. She doesn't necessarily overeat at night as much as she undereats during the day. What I mean by that is what she eats at night is probably borderline okay, maybe just a smidge over what she needs. But she's so underfed during the day that when she gets that food at night, it's more than what she needs in that moment. It's a momentary surplus. So her body is saving all of that surplus as body fat to try to cover the gap of next day's energy. Now, the body isn't necessarily predictive like that, but it does know, hey, I just went all day, did a whole bunch of stuff that I did not have energy for. We had to burn off some body fat. I had to reduce my calorie allocation to all these other things because where in the world was I going to get all the calories to do everything you were asking me to do? So I had to slow down how many calories I was given to hair, skin, nails, muscle repair. It had to pull back on calories and everything else. And it had to get rid of some body fat. So then at night, when you eat a surplus, it says, oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, okay. Hey, let's replace that body fat. Let's put more body fat back, actually, for extra protection. And let's see, once we replace the body fat, once we form new body fat, as extra protection, if we have some extra, maybe we'll give a little bit back towards the hair, the skin, the nails, the non-essential processes, but that's dead last. The first thing the body's going to want to do is replace the body fat that was lost and put more back on as protection. So that's what's happening. The body is a responsive entity, so when you do something to it, it responds afterwards. So that is essentially what is happening every single day, day after day after day after day. Now, she's not overeating so much at night that fat, fat formation isn't happening so drastically. She's not gaining 5 pounds of fat in 1 week, but she is gaining, 15 pounds of fat over 6 months. Maybe she gained 20 pounds of fat in the last year. And those are things that quote unquote creep up on people. Is oh man, I just put on about 10 pounds over the last couple months. I'm not really sure what happened. This is what happened. They underate during the day. They overate in moments, whether that was at night or random lunches with friends or random weekend dinners. They had inconsistent eating. There were moments of undereating. There was moments of overeating. In the moments of overeating, the body saved those momentary surpluses to replace the body fat that was used and to put more back on in the moments that we were in extreme deficits. So the more consistent we can make our calories, the less deficits we have, the less surpluses we have, the more consistency we have with what's coming in. The body feels less need to protect the body fat it has to replace it, and it feels no need then to put new body fat back on. So the first thing we're going to do is focusing on balancing our food intake. So I tell people to focus on their day as 3 sections. The first 5 hours or so of being awake, the next 5 hours of being awake, and then the final whatever hours of being awake. People typically sleep 6 to 8 hours, so that leaves 16 to 18 hours in a day. So roughly, if you divide your day by 3, that's about 5 to 6 hours, 3 units of 5 to 6 hours. If we can consume very similar calories, within 100 or so, calories per third of the day. So the first 5 to 6 hours, the second 5 to 6 hours, the third 5 to 6 hours. So per 1/3 of the day, if we can evenly distribute our calories and protein across those thirds, We're going to get much leaner, have better energy, everything's going to go well. All the good stuff happens there. Then what we wanted to do is I do want her to have enough, so I gave her some recommendations. So for her, the recommendations were 500 to 800 calories per 1/3 of the day, and then 30 to 50 grams of protein per 1/3 of the day. And I gave her example meals. I think I gave her like 20 some example meals that fit into those parameters, and she can choose those or make her own, but at least got her something started. So that's where we're starting. And then I also asked her to look at a hydration, because if we're hydrated, we have better daily energy, our body processes food better, our digestion is better, our muscles are more pliable, they're less sticky, less tight. She's going to just feel better during the day. That'll hopefully then give her better daily energy, and then maybe she does feel like working out. She feels a little better digestion, better energy, better movement, more freedom of movement. She feels loose and good to go. So she's all of a sudden going to feel better to actually work out. So that's the place we're starting, is calories and protein distributed across the day pretty evenly, and then being hydrated. Once she feels confident with that, then we'll worry about exercise and weight training. But at least we know that if we get our food in place, we have the building blocks of what training would do for us, how it's going to make the benefits we want. It has to have the nutritional support for those benefits. You can't weight train without nutrition in place and think you're going to get jack shit, basically. So you have to have the nutritional support to make the adaptations that the training is supposedly demanding on the body. So if you train to build bigger muscles, what is the body building bigger muscles with? If you train to get stronger, how is it doing that with the nervous system? If you're training to improve connective tissue, to bone density, balance, muscular endurance, cardiovascular endurance, if you want the body to make these processes better, what does it have material-wise to do that with? So we have to have the nutritional support in place. So that's where we're starting. Now, for you, whatever you want to do, whatever your goals are, how can you overcome the hesitations that people feel towards starting when they're not confident in what to do, they're not confident if they can do it, or they seem so overwhelmed with how big it is, what they think they need to do, how big it is, that they never even start? How do we overcome that? Well, it's going to be three things. They're going to be things you probably have heard before. I'm going to say them again. We're going to talk through it a little bit, and then I would encourage you to give them a try. Number one is to start small. Start with something small enough that you think you can do it 5 out of 7 days a week. Why 5 out of 7? Weird number, right? What I have found is if people follow their typical nutrition patterns, like the patterns I give them, depending on whatever their nutrition program is, depending on their goals and their background. So everybody's nutrition program is different. So this example, if we want this client, this person, to eat 500 to 800 calories per 5 to 6 hours of the day, that's not impossible to do. So when she has a breakfast, because she already does eat breakfast, just make sure it's around 500 to 800 calories. If that seems like too big of a breakfast, we'll have a breakfast but then a mid-morning snack. Divide those calories across the two meals in those 5 to 6 hours. The next 5 to 6 hours for lunch, people typically are okay eating 500, 800 calorie lunch. That doesn't seem like too much to them. So she can do that. And then for dinner, another 500 to 800 calories. So our goal would be 500 to 800 calories. I think I slipped and said 500 or 600 in there for lunch. But we want 500 to 800 calories per 5 to 6 hours of the day. That's pretty doable. She's already going to be eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, can we eat from the 20 plus examples I gave her of meals, or can she start to make her own? And I gave her information on tracking apps and how to read labels and use Google and stuff. But can she do that? If she does that 5 out of 7 days a week, she will make progress, not just slow down regression. She'll actually make progress. So 5 out of 7 days I have found is a frequency and adherence percentage that creates positive progression. 4 out of 7, you're kind of standing still. 3 out of 7, you're just slowing regression. So 5 out of 7, can we do whatever we're going to think we need to do? Can I do it for 5 out of 7 days? So if somebody's like, I'm going to eat only 1,000 calories a day. Good luck. Can you do that 5 out of 7 days a week? Like whatever you pick to do. So maybe somebody's like, I'm going to do, 500 bodyweight squats a day. Okay, can you do that 5 out of 7 days? If you can only really get that 3 or 4 days a week, it'll make initial progress because you've never done it before, but then it stops and then it becomes just kind of a waste of time because you're not getting anything progressive for the effort. If I want to do something and put my time, effort, energy, and thought process and money and resources to it, I don't want to do it just to stand still. Good God, that'd be depressing. I want to do it to move forward. So 5 out of 7 days will move you forward. Tip number 2. So tip number 1 was to start small. Tip number 2 is to stay small. What this means is don't just add a bunch of crap right away. So wait until you're consistent 5 out of 7 days for at least 2 weeks. I usually push people to do it for 4 weeks. So if we're going to try something, let's try and see if we can be consistent for 4 weeks. Can we get 5 out of 7 days for 4 weeks? So we're going to start small, but we're going to stay small. Don't get rowdy and crazy after the first week or the first couple days like, I did really good Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now let me double my efforts on Thursday. No. So start small, stay small. The reason why is if you stay small, you're going to continue to build momentum, continue to build confidence, continue to build excitement and confidence in when you do take the next step that you'll actually be able to do it. So staying small doesn't mean you're progressing small. It means you're preparing, right? You're preparing for this to be a life change. You're preparing for long-term success by staying small enough that you can become consistent enough that even when times are good, even when times are bad, even when times are average, these minimal habits stay in place. Tip number 3. So tip 1 was start small. Tip 2 was stay small. Tip 3 is to add small. So when you do add something, just add something small. So for example, let's say somebody wants to track the first 5 to 6 hours of their day, and they're going to say, I'm going to see if I can get 500 to 800 calories in the first 5 to 6 hours of the day. That's all they look at. They don't look at the rest of the day, just the first 5 to 6 hours. So maybe they do that really well for 4 weeks. And then they're like, you know what, I'm ready for something extra. Now let me track the second unit of 5 to 6 hours in a day. So I'm just going to track my first 5 to 6 hours, my middle 5 to 6 hours, do that for 4 weeks. So that is an add small. We're adding something that's still possible to do with the baseline activity. You add this new activity, and you can still do it probably 5 out of 7 days a week. What's fun, just a little insight, is last year in 2024, I wanted to build some muscle, but then diet down at the end of the year. So my goal was to end the year bigger but also leaner than I started the year. I started last year at 277 pounds. I built my way up to 297 pounds, and then I dieted down to 267 pounds. So I gained 20 pounds, I lost 30 pounds. That's a 50-pound weight change. That's pretty big. That sounds significant. So if I were to ask you if you wanted to do that, you would say like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That's probably a big change, right? So if you wanted to, gain some muscle, lose some fat, and it was a 50-pound net change difference in a year, that does sound pretty good. The funny thing is, though, that's less than a pound a week. There's 52 weeks in a year. I only made a 50-pound change. I changed at a rate of less than 1 pound a week. That's small. So often the advice that we have, the 3 tips, start small, stay small, add small, can be perceived to be too small to be meaningful. But it isn't. Small, when consistent, equals success. Small, when consistent, equals big changes. Small, when consistent, equals what we actually want. The life that you want to have. The person you want to be. It is built on small but consistent actions. Awesome. If you have any questions, if you need anything, let me know. My email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. I do one-on-one coaching. So if you're wanting help with nutrition, training, mindset, lifestyle changes, anything you want at all, that's what our coaching service is for. So if you like the podcast, if you like what I teach, let me teach it to you. You can learn more about that service by emailing me at brutalirongym@gmail.com or going to our website at www.brutalirongym.com. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, you can donate to support the podcast on our website, or you can go to NutriCost.com to buy your supplements. Use the code BrutalIron10. You'll get a 10% discount, and 10% of whatever you spend gets kicked back to us as a commission. So thank you for doing that. If you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.